Hello, guys. This is Not Blue, and we are going to jump into it with a new video. We are going to be reviewing the new Paladin from the 2024 Player's Handbook. You are welcome for the most terrifying still image that this probably has. I understand that this is supposed to be like an orc on the screen. Kind of gives Pennywise vibes, right? Kind of looks a little bit like Pennywise. But I just want to jump into it. It looks like since the last time I recorded one of these videos, they have released like 5. So I'm very far behind. I'm going to probably be posting some of these back to back to just catch up on the D&D content. So we are just going to jump in and see what these guys have to say about the new Paladin.
One of the things you'll notice as a Paladin player immediately when you see the new player's handbook is that your spellcasting has moved from level 2 to level 1. And so you will begin being able to cast spells right away. And this also has a carry-on effect for multiclassing, that if you multiclass now, you will get more slots out of.
I did not realize that Paladins couldn't cast spells at level 1. So I've only played a Paladin once, and it was in a campaign where my previous character had died. And I've also played it in Baldur's Gate, but it was after Menthora was released. Or I might have played a different Paladin in Baldur's Gate, but I didn't realize they didn't get like smites and stuff at 4th level. That seems odd to me that wasn't already a thing.
Of the Paladin part of your multi-class mix than you did before. And when we talk about the Ranger, we'll see that a similar thing happened there. We did this because we wanted Paladin players to start learning how to use their spells right away, because spells are a key part of the Paladin's kit. And having it at 2nd level before meant you were waiting to learn how to use one of the most important parts of your class. So now there's no wait. You start right away at 1st level learning some spells, which you'll then need to know all about when you get to level 2 and you start doing Divine Smite.
Yeah.
At level 1, you don't just get spellcasting now, though.
So you don't get Divine Smite until level 2, but you get spells at level 1. But Divine Smite is like the Paladin's thing. So why not just give it to them at level 1, right? I mean, if you're already giving them spell slots at level 1, just give them the thing that the Paladin wants. Let's be honest. When I've played a Paladin, I don't use my spell slots for many other things than Divine Smite. Or just smites overall. Because you can use it for like the other smites, but most of the time I feel like Divine Smite is enough.
You still get Lay on Hands, that iconic ability that Paladins have to heal themselves and others. And you also get Weapon Mastery. And so that means that Paladins too are going to get to play with all of the fun that Weapon Mastery brings to any of our classes focused on weapon use. Now, when you get to then level 2, there's more new stuff waiting for you. And at first, you might look at the class feature table for the Paladin and see, oh, fighting style, I had that before. But there's actually a lot of change hiding in there, good updates for the Paladin, because now, when you choose your fighting style as a Paladin, you are no longer restricted to a curated list like the Paladin was in 2014. You now have access to the full fighting style list that fighters also have access to.
Okay, interesting.
And you also have the option to forego choosing any of those and instead learning some cleric cantrips.
Oh, okay.
So if you decide that you'd rather be more of a spell hurling paladin rather than leaning harder into your weapon use, you now have that option.
I've never played a cleric. Just to be clear, I've never played a cleric. It's not really something I've been interested in. if you want to be more of a spell casting like Holy Knight, why not just play a cleric? Because I feel like their cantrip list probably is not the best. Let's be honest. You're going to get like guidance, which guidance is amazing, but is it worth nerfing your paladin pretty much? Because most people are not going to pick a spell casting paladin over a melee paladin, especially when you're making the paladin as good at melee as like a fighter. They get all of the different fighting styles, they get weapon masteries. So you're pretty much making it like the champion fighter without the improved criticals and stuff like that. I mean, I might be off base here, but I feel like you should just play a cleric if you want to be a spellcasting paladin.
In the fighting style feature at level 2.
Okay.
This is a part of a theme of us providing more customization options where it made sense in each of the classes.
Just keep like the war domain cleric. That fixes this problem, right?
You also now get a feature called Paladin's Smite. This was called Divine Smite in 2014. It's now called Paladin's Smite because it actually now gives you two things. In 2014, this feature allowed you to use the class's iconic Divine Smite ability where you burn a spell slot and deal a bucket load of extra damage to a target you just hit. Divine Smite still does that. Divine Smite, though, has now been packaged as a spell. And then the Paladin Smite feature, in addition to giving you that spell and allowing you to always have it prepared, also now lets you cast Divine Smite once per day without burning a spell slot. So what that means is Paladins now every day get a freebie Divine Smite. And so that's going to relieve a little bit some of the pressure on their spell slots. We did this so that Paladins could certainly just use all their spell slots to cast Divine Smite.
That's what most of them are going to do. I like this. I like the free Divine Smite each day. I feel like, so they said that the Paladin Smite does two things. It gives you Divine Smite, lets you keep it as a spell without preparing it, and then allows you to cast it for free once a day. But it also said that Divine Smite became a spell. So does this mean, and I might be jumping the gun here, we still have 21 minutes left of this video, and I feel like I'm being too critical. Does that mean that Divine Smite is going to cast or take a full bonus action? Because the nice thing about Divine Smite, as opposed to like Searing Smite or something like that, a different smite, is that it didn't take a bonus action. So you could theoretically Divine Smite more than once a turn. Are they going to make that to where it's a bonus action spell now and pretty much nerf Divine Smite? Let's see if they talk about it.
But we also wanted to make it just a smidge easier for Paladins to cast some of their other spells if they so choose.
Perfect.
Now, when we get to level 3, where you pick your subclass, you also get Channel Divinity, and here there's a really nice upgrade for Paladins in terms of the number of uses of Channel Divinity they get. It used to be that a Paladin got exactly one use of Channel Divinity, and then that was restored upon taking a short or a long rest. Now you get 2 uses to start, and every time you take a short rest, you get 1 use back, and then when you take a long rest, you get all your uses back. But then even better, that 2 turns into a 3 when you hit level 11. So you're going to be able to use your Channel Divinity far more often than you could before. We've also taken the Divine Sense feature that Paladins used to have and turned it into a Channel Divinity option. And in the process, we've also made it last quite a bit longer. So if you do decide to use Divine Sense rather than it lasting only one round, which was how long it lasted in 2014, it now is going to last 10 minutes. And we increased its duration, not only because you're now using your channel divinity on it, but also to make it easier to use, particularly in social interaction and exploration scenes. You know, the classic circumstance of the Paladin is at the Queen's Ball and is trying to figure out which of these partygoers is actually a demon or an undead in disguise.
Right.
This longer duration will allow the Paladin to get a bit more bang for their buck when they decide to use Divine Sense.
I do feel like I'm being too negative here. I feel like adding Divine Sense to Channel Divinity and increasing the number of Channel Divinities you can use a day isn't the best thing. I feel like just keep Divine Sense separate, because that's what a lot of Paladins are going to use Divine Sense. So you're pretty much wasting your Channel Divinity point to use Divine Sense. I don't know. So far in this 6 minutes of the video out of 25 minutes, I'm not super excited about the Paladin changes. I feel like changing it to a Channel Divinity was not the best choice. But we'll see how it goes. We'll keep going. There might be some positives coming up here soon.
We also, at level 5, have made it so that all Paladins now get the Find Steed spell for free.
That's a better thing. I like that. I want to find a steed. Every time I've had a horse or something, it dies in the campaign, so that would be cool.
Always have it prepared, and they can cast it once per day without expending a spell slot.
I say dies in the campaign. Normally, I just forget that I have the steed. So, I mean, eventually it probably dies. I like the without expending a spell slot. That's great. It reminds me of like the Warlock, how you have some invocations that don't expend spell slots. And I feel like the Paladin is kind of the polar opposite of a Warlock, so I kind of like that.
Find Steed is an iconic Paladin spell, and we decided we did not want a Paladin to have to use up one of their spell preparation slots on that spell.
Right.
And we also wanted you to be able to use it at least once per day without having to use one of your precious few slots, since Paladins and Rangers do have fewer spell slots than many of our other spellcasters. And then on top of that, the Find Steed spell has been completely redesigned for the Paladin so that the steed can now get more powerful depending on the level of the spell slot you use to cast the spell. And the steed is now not reliant on particular animal stat blocks, but instead has a stat block all its own, specially designed for the Paladin.
Perfect.
So you really feel like you are summoning this otherworldly creature that isn't just a horse or some other creature that you're riding around on, but is this otherworldly being that is there to work with you really as a companion, as this faithful companion there to assist the Paladin and the Paladin's friends.
That's amazing.
I've never used the Find Steed spell. I kind of want to now. I've never really even looked into it. When I was a Paladin, I mean, my Paladin did not last for very long. So I don't even know if I had the option, but that does sound cool. I want to have like a horse or something. I guess my Paladin had a bag of tricks and would constantly try to summon things for the party to ride on, like a giant badger or something. But this seems like a cool thing just for him.
I am hoping that with this change, many Paladins will feel more empowered to have these really cool companions present on their adventures.
And that's,
I want a griffin.
again, living out that fantasy and honing in on that wish fulfillment of wanting to smite more, and also getting that steed like sooner and easier.
Absolutely. We also have in the core class given all paladins a new feature called Abjure Foes, and this gives all paladins a juicy use for their channel divinity. A number of our paladin subclasses in the past had a channel divinity option that was very similar to Abjure Foes, but it was sort of slightly changed in a number of the subclasses. We decided to take those variants, create a universe.
That's a cool picture. I like that. The Pennywise Orc Lady fighting a Displacer Beast is a pretty sick image. It looks like they're probably doing a Divine Smite or something on the blade, but it kind of reminds me of the Sunblade a little bit, which I don't like the Sunblade, but it's cool. I just think that the campaign that it's in is not a great spot for it. It's a little bit too powerful, but such an awesome picture.
Universal version that all paladins are happy to have, and now built it into the base class.
Okay.
We also did some under the hood work on the paladin's aura, partly by turning it into a single aura that gains additional.
I'm so sorry to pause right here. This is such an important thing. We'll backtrack a little bit. I don't know what Jeremy Crawford's doing right here, but I don't know if you can tell on like a cell phone or something. I'm wearing Fine Studio headphones. I love them, but he has his lav mic on his lapel right here. I think that's called a lapel for a polo. I don't know, but it's rubbing against the short. And I've watched 2 or 3 of these now, 3 maybe. The audio does not sound as good in this one because his lapel mic is rubbing against it. I'm not an audio expert, but I mean, come on, guys. Somebody should have caught that, right? They probably have somebody listening to the audio, don't they? Like while they're recording these?
Additional abilities. Previously, the paladin, and particularly based on whatever subclass you ended up picking, would end up having multiple different auras, some of them with different radii.
Yeah.
And it could start getting quite confusing keeping track of like all of your different auras and how big is this one versus that one.
Yeah.
So we sort of cleaned up the whole aura game for paladins by, in the base class and then also in the subclasses that are in this book, all of the auras that used to be different auras before are now all one aura that simply gains new functionality. So it's going to be far easier for the paladin to keep track of what's going on because the paladin now has just one aura that just gains cool new features as the paladin goes up in level.
I do like that. That's a pretty cool picture too, of like the elf, like druidic paladin, pretty much. But I do like that they're simplifying it a little bit with the auras. That's probably really good for like new paladin players.
Aura also makes use of a new type of area of effect that we've introduced in the new player's handbook. And it is an area of effect that has been in the game for the last 10 years, but didn't have a name. And we decided to finally give it a name. And I'm bringing it up now while talking about the Paladin because it's specifically for things like auras and other effects that emanate outward from a particular creature or object. And so this area of effect is called the emanation. We've seen it all over the place in 5th edition over the last 10 years.
I don't think they needed a new name for this, right? They could have just continued calling it an AoE thing. I feel like they also picked a very complicated name. Emanation. I'm not the best at talking sometimes. You guys would know that if you've watched any of this video, to be honest. I'm not going to be able to say that every single time. There's no way. I'm going to trip over my letters if I try to say that every time I describe a specific AoE.
So basically, anytime you read a feature or a monster ability or a spell that talked about creatures within a certain radius being affected by something, that was basically an emanation. It just wasn't called that.
Yeah.
So we have now given that area of effect a name and given it its own definition, just as the other areas of effect in our system have definitions. And you can now find all of those definitions in the Player's Handbook's rules glossary. One other thing in the Paladin that I wanted to chat about, because this is the first of the spellcasting classes that we have talked about, is the new approach to spell lists. So each spellcasting class now has its spell list inside the class description. So rather than making a paladin or a ranger or a warlock or another
go all the way back to the end of the book.
Instead, it's right there in the class description. But in addition to that, we have worked to make the spell list that's in your class more useful for you. And we've done that by not only giving you all the spells by name, but also every spell's school of magic is listed. We also tell you if the spell on your list requires concentration. We also tell you if it's a ritual, and we also tell you if it has a specific component that you must have to cast the spell. So in those cases, when a component has a specific cost or the spell consumes the component, you must have that component to cast that spell. And so we now tell you in your class spell list if the spell has a required component, so that you now have sort of one-stop shopping for your spells, and you can see at a glance what the spell's school of magic is, if it requires concentration, if it's a ritual, and if it has a specific component you must have to cast it.
This is all.
I've never used any of the rule books to learn my spells. I bought pretty much all of the spell cards. So this sounds great. I do like that it says if there's a required thing. I only require something if there's like a monetary cost to it. So like a cleric cannot cast a with Revivify without the diamond kind of thing. But I do think this sounds interesting. Like I said, I've only ever used spell cards. I kind of hope they come out with new spell cards for the 2024 Player's Handbook, but we'll see how it goes.
All meant for if you're a player and you play paladins or warlocks, you have less pages you need to traverse to understand what you have and what you need.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The paladin subclasses have all received some fun updates, starting with the Oath of Devotion.
Yeah, let's start with the Oath of Devotion. What is new here?
One of the biggies right away is the Oath of Devotion can now activate their Sacred Weapon feature as part of the attack action rather than sacking their entire action to do it.
Yeah.
In the past, it was so punishing to have to use your entire action to activate it that many Paladin players just decided not to use it. Now, as a part of attacking, you can simply decide, I'm going to activate this.
Okay. Sacred Weapon is a paladin spell that I think it's fine to give up a smite for. So, Sacred Weapon is great because it adds to the action economy on your side. There's a new enemy for your enemies to attack. So I do understand why paladins would want the Sacred Weapon spell to be better. I do appreciate that they improved it. And I will say, as somebody who uses most of the paladin spell slots for smites, Sacred Weapon is still a great spell.
We have also replaced in the Oath of Devotion the feature that was previously called Purity of Spirit with a new feature called Smite of Protection. And what this now does is when you use your Divine Smite, because the Oath of Devotion Paladin is the classic knight in shining armor who is there to protect others, it now means that when you use Divine Smite, you and your allies in your aura of protection have half cover for a limited time. So you have this magical protection that gives you the full benefits of half cover, even if you're standing out in the open, as long as your friends are in that aura of protection. And so this gives a nice feeling of being a guardian, even when you're blasting your foes with Divine Smite. We've also made it so that the level 20 ability, Holy Nimbus, is now usable as a bonus action instead of an action, because we want you to be able to activate it and then keep going on your turn, rather than essentially spending an entire turn getting ready to do something. And there are a number of places in the player's handbook where abilities that really are just turning on a state have often now been changed from being an action to a bonus action, or in some cases, like with Sacred Weapon in Oath of Devotion, don't require an action or a bonus action at all, and instead are absorbed into another action. Because again, in many cases, we want you to get to the fun faster. The Oath of
I do love whenever you change something to a lesser action, like a bonus action. I think he said level 20. Most people are never using that. I'm happy for the people that do, but most people are never using that. Most campaigns don't even 1 to 20. The ideal campaign goes from level 1 to level 20, but that's a long campaign. And a lot of DMs are not prepared for long campaigns. A lot of DMs don't want to do long campaigns, especially because of how difficult late game play can become.
the Devotion is joined by the Oath of Glory. This, for me, is often the Paladin who, if they were in a movie, would look at the camera, have impossibly white teeth with a little sparkle on them as they smile. The Oath of Glory appeared previously in Tasha's Cauldron of Everything, as well as in Mythic Odysseys of Theros.
Yeah, that's where it first came from.
And it has evolved a bit on its way to the Player's Handbook. And two of the main evolutions that I think are worth talking about here. One is the Peerless Athlete feature now lasts for an hour rather than 10 minutes.
Oh, that's good.
This feature is especially useful in exploration contexts.
Exactly, yeah.
And so we wanted it to be more useful in that pillar of adventure. The other big change is to Aura of Alacrity. The new feature here is that it not only benefits your allies who start their turn in your Aura of Protection, but also if they enter that aura on their turn. This is a really major change, because before, the Aura of Alacrity, which speeds you and your allies up, it's all about the Paladin allowing you all to charge forward into battle or some other situation more quickly. The way it was designed before, it was actually extremely difficult sometimes for it to even do anything for your friends, because they had to time it so that they started their turn in your aura, which can actually be more complicated than it sounds when everyone is taking turns in a particular order. This change now means that no matter when a person's turn is relative to the Paladins, and no matter where they are on the battlefield, as long as they make sure to pass through the aura on their turn, they will suddenly get the speed boost.
That's super helpful, otherwise really weird on the battlefield.
Yes, where it's sort of, you can have a whole lot of hurry up and wait.
Yeah.
One other thing I would love to mention about Oath of Glory that relates actually to all of the Paladin subclasses is that we have vetted their oath spell lists in each subclass. And so players are going to see, not only in the oath spell list, but also when you get to the cleric, the domain spell list, and in the warlock, the patron spell list. All of these lists have been vetted and in many cases updated with different spell options. I'm thinking of this now while we're talking about the Oath of Glory, particularly because the Oath of Glory list, in getting updated, even includes a brand new spell appearing in this player's handbook for the first time. So when you reach level 17 as a Paladin, and if you have the Oath of Glory subclass, you get a brand new spell in the game called Yolan's Regal Presence. And this is a spell created by the Queen of the Elves in the world of Greyhawk. And it allows the Paladin and anyone else who casts the spell to, as it says in the name, have an extraordinarily regal presence that will cause people to like fall down on their knees and also potentially take psychic damage from just how glorious you are.
Perfect.
But I wanted to bring that up because I hope everyone will take time, when they come to their favorite subclass, if it's a subclass that had a little spell list, take a look at that list, because you're going to find often that not only have some of the spells been swapped, one spell for another, but sometimes the new spell that's on the list is a brand new spell for the game.
Perfect. So we have the Oath of the Ancients Paladin. This is one of my favorites. It feels like the Green Knight. It's a very unique feel from any other class or subclass.
And when we created the Oath of the Ancients originally for the 2014 Player's Handbook, it really was in answer to the question, what would a paladin look like who had been a part of elven culture, or another culture that maybe is less sort of knight in shining armor, but still would have these noble oaths and have a lot of the dedication that we associate with paladins, but again, more of a nature or or druidic or elven aesthetic. And so the answer to that was the Oath of the Ancients. The art for it is wonderful, as is the art for all of the subclasses in the book. And we have made some enhancements to the Oath as it has migrated into the new Player's Handbook. One of those is that the subclass's aura of warding at level 7 now just straight up gives people in your aura resistance to necrotic, psychic, and radiant damage. Because this paladin is all about protecting people from, in some cases, foes from beyond. And so that's why their aura now will protect you from the magic of necrosis, which we associated with the negative energy plane, radiant damage, which is from the positive energy plane, and then psychic damage, which we often associate with the far realm.
And radiant damage can feel also very creepy. It doesn't have to feel like celestial and happy and good. This can also be something, feel like radioactive.
Exactly.
So it's not always a benevolent or natural source.
Exactly.
I have questions. First off, I just checked my D&D app. I was about to say that the paladin that I played in a D&D game should have been an Oath of the Ancients. I don't know what he was. I think he was an Oath of Vengeance. So it was a dwarf raised by gnomes in the forest. So that's why I said he should have been an Oath of the Ancients. But I think he was an Oath of Vengeance because sadly his gnome village got attacked by dragons, kind of thing. Or they were constantly fighting kobolds that worked for a dragon. But I do want to maybe do a video just talking about some of the characters I've played in the past. Secondly, did they change the Feywild to the Fall Realm? Was the Fall Realm a different thing? I would like to see something about the different realms of the 2024 Player's Handbook, because they've mentioned Greyhawk, but is like the Sword Coast still around? Like, what are they including? And this might be something in the DMG instead of the Player's Handbook. I think it should be on both, because one of the characters could be from a different realm or a different area of the universe, but I'm just curious if they changed that. And then there was something else that he said. Let's go back a little bit.
Radioactive.
Exactly.
So it's not always
That radiant damage could feel radioactive. So let's say that for some reason I have a city in my homebrew world full of gnomes that love making doomsday devices. So if they were to make a nuclear bomb, instead of like acid damage or poison damage or even necrotic damage, should that bomb blow up to radiant damage? Because the way I was thinking of it is a combination of fire damage and force damage for the initial explosion. And then if you go outside afterwards and it's actually a radioactive bomb, which none of the Doomsday devices are as of right now, maybe something like poison or necrotic where the atmosphere itself is damaging your body. But I've never considered radiant damage, so maybe instead of fire damage, it should be radiant. I feel like the force damage is mostly like an AoE thing. So it's fire damage up to a certain distance, force damage for a little bit farther than that. But it does bring up a good point that maybe it should be radiant damage. And maybe the outskirts should just be like lesser amounts of that radiant damage. Let me know if you guys watch this far into the video, what you think a radioactive bomb should do damage type-wise.
Is a benevolent or natural source.
Exactly. Just as necrotic damage is not always malevolent,
Right.
Because death can be it is a natural part of the world. Also, in the subclass, we have increased the range of the subclass's Nature's Wrath ability, which is their entanglement ability. So if you love playing an Oath of the Ancients Paladin and tangling people up in roots, well, now you can do that even easier because the range of that ability has been extended. We have also, in the subclass's Undying Sentinel ability, made it so that if you pop back from 0, you don't pop back with just 1 hit point. And just as we did in the Barbarian, you now pop back with a bunch of hit points so that you don't get knocked down immediately after you popped back up.
Perfect.
Those are the main changes here, and really just our effort to make this great subclass just even better at the fun stuff it was already doing.
I do think Oath of the Ancients would have been better for this guy that I played. We're going to loop back to this for a quick second. The guy that I played should have been Oath of the Ancients because he was raised by gnomes. His parents did train the gnomes a little bit on how to be paladins. I think what it ended up being, it wasn't Oath of Vengeance. I had him as an Oath of Devotion paladin because he was too devoted to Garl Glittergold, the god of the gnomes in D&D. And it made for a very cool dynamic where he was a dwarf worshipping a gnome god because he was raised by gnomes. And he spoke gnomish and everything a lot like that because that's just how he had lived for the probably 50 years that he had been alive. He was an older character compared to some of the guys that I've played. But we're going to go away from that tangent for a bit and jump back into this. I feel like they've only done 2 oaths and there's not much time left. So they're not going to talk about the others.
I love that even the subclasses that are very tried and true are still getting, a facelift, an upgrade, and getting something extra to do.
And that is true of every subclass in the book, that no matter how solid it was, it's getting some new upgrade. And so that leaves us then with the Oath of Vengeance. This was another subclass that was super solid, but still has some fun new toys within it. One of the biggies, because it affects the subclass's most iconic ability, its Vow of Enmity, is you no longer have to use your bonus action to activate your Vow of Enmity. This you can now use simply as a part of the attack action.
Wow.
And we've also made it so that if the target of your Vow of Enmity perishes, you now have a window of time where you can transfer it to somebody else. Because it used to be that you would place it on somebody, and if they got felled quickly enough,
right,
it's like, well,
I guess that's done. Or someone else kills them, yeah.
And so now Similar to how Hunter's Mark functions, where you can move that spell around, you can now also move around your Vow of Enmity. At level 20, with their Avenging Angel ability, we've made 2 major enhancements. One of them is you can now activate it as a bonus action instead of an action.
Thank you. The new player's handbook is
I like the Vow of Enmity change. I'm confused. First off, did we lose an oath somewhere? Yeah. So I forgot that we did Oath of Glory somehow. For me, Oath of Glory is very similar to like a Thor type character. I did a video called Marvel superheroes as, or MCU superheroes as D&D characters. And I think I put Thor as an Oath of Glory because of the first 2 movies. So like regular Thor and then Thor Ragnarok, or not Thor Ragnarok, Thor the Dark World. I think he was kind of similar to a Glory Paladin. But I'm confused because this guy said 2.
Angel ability.
Yeah.
We've made 2 major
2 major
enhancements.
changes.
One of them is
Enhancements.
you can now activate it as a bonus action instead of an action.
1.
Thank you. The new player's handbook is
Video ends. Like what happened? Is it not done?
about the new player's handbook and all the new core rule books, the new monster manual, the new dungeon master's guide. So be sure to check out all of that content, and thank you for watching.
Could we watch the hour-long video sometime? The everything you need to know. I kind of prefer doing these shorter videos. I kind of don't want to sit in a chair and watch a YouTube video for an hour, but that's just my opinion. I will say, overall, I'm not excited for the Paladin. I'm excited for a couple of things. There are some Paladin abilities that are going to be easier to use now, just like the Vow of Enmity with it changing to just part of the attack action instead of a bonus action. That's really great. I like that it's more similar to Hunter's Mark than it used to be. But overall, I think that a lot of the changes I'm just not a fan of. So I will probably still be mostly running the 5e Paladin in my groups. Maybe by implementing some of these changes, I would like to get to a point where I can take stuff from 5e. I can take stuff from 2024's D&D edition, because I don't know what name they're going with at this point. And I can kind of marry them together to create better classes for my party, but I'm not sure how well that's going to work. So overall, I think that they could have done a little bit of a better job with Paladins. To address one thing, I know I don't look like I normally do. My hair's kind of messed up here, but I got a haircut. If you've been watching these videos in orders, I got a haircut. And then I do have contact lenses in right now. Because I got summoned for a court case, nothing ended up happening. I pretty much sat in the lobby for an hour and a half waiting to get called upon and then get told I could go home. But because of that, I'm wearing contact lenses. I had a dress shirt on earlier. I'm just a little bit in a different... I look a little different today. That's also the reason I'm wearing a white shirt today. I don't know why, but I do keep wearing white shirts for YouTube videos. I think it's more of a simplicity thing. I kind of just want to grab a shirt when I get up to do these. So I just kind of grab whichever one I can find the first. And I have a lot of white t-shirts. So it's not for a specific reason. I'm not trying to be moist critical or anything. I'm not even a fan of how a white shirt looks on me, but for some reason I decided that this is the video where I will address the white t-shirt thing. But I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I'm really excited for some of the videos coming up. I know they have a video on the new Warlock, the new Barbarian, stuff like that. So we will be diving into those soon. I might dive into another one before I go to sleep tonight. But I'm definitely taking out these contact lenses soon, so I will not look the same. If you did like the video, leave a like. You know the spiel. Subscribe to the channel if you want to see these videos as they are released. I do love talking about D&D. I don't do it often enough on this channel, although the past week of my content has been 90% D&D. Other than that, if you want to see these videos as they release, you can hit the notification bell to be notified when videos come out. Other than that, I hope everybody is having a great day, and until next time, peace.